The UCSF Medical Center is one of the 5 medical health sciences campuses of the University of California, located completely within the city of San Francisco. Mobility became very important as we started really getting the electronic medical record into the clinical space. At UCSF, we had a dramatic period of catch-up where we went from almost purely paper records to a very rapid implementation of an electronic medical record that had full results retrieval as well as full clinical documentation. We undertook this fairly detailed time motion study to look at exactly what the nurse's workload was around technology and how much time was actually being spent with each piece of the technology as they went through their daily lives working with the electronic medical record. What we didn't realize was how frequently the nurses were going back and forth to the computers and having to do these logins from a fresh start fairly frequently. That was obviously a completely unacceptable use of nursing resource. It became fairly clear to us as we were analyzing what the deficits were in the COW environment and how we were going to bring the EMR more to the users rather than the users going to it, that we were going to need a highly mobile platform, but that wasn't going to be enough. We realized it wasn't just a next generation hardware device that we needed. It was really a combination of the hardware, the software, the wireless network, the applications, and the users who all needed to come together to really make that work. We went through a fairly extensive training period with an initial group, a pilot group of users. We realized that we had a significant problem with nurse logons and the time that we were eating up with nurses logging into the system. And we found that indeed that went down from approximately 42 to approximately 12 logons per shift, fairly dramatic reduction and obviously a significant decrease in the amount of time. The logons were faster as well, so there was a further reduction in the amount of time nurses spent logging in. Now that the nurses had the devices with them, not only were they documenting additional data that they didn't document electronically previously because they just had the device and were just there to do it, but they documented the data immediately. Another piece of the ecosystem that we looked at was nurses were taking data from a digital device and creating manual data out of it and then re-entering it into another digital device. They were writing it on a piece of paper or writing it on their scrubs or writing it on a paper towel or whatever, and then carrying it around for 2 hours before they re-entered it into the electronic medical record. Working with GE, we wrote a very small custom application that became part of the electronic medical record so that the EMR could actually acquire the data immediately from the Dynamap device. The nurse saw the data, could simply validate the data, and it automatically got pushed right into the EMR. One of the most important outcomes was the data was now available 2 hours earlier than before. On top of that, the data was now accurate. Documentation in the digital record went up by about 25% without any teaching, without any coaching. They just did more documentation right then because it was easy to do. But just by doing one pilot doesn't teach you what's going to work for all the areas. You've also got to respect the different ages and the different capabilities of the users. The key considerations in thinking about how you do mobility or whether you should do mobility are workflow, workflow, and workflow. Buying a bunch of highly mobile tablets without taking into consideration your whole ecosystem of how you're going to deploy them will result in a bunch of tablets piled in a corner somewhere that no one's really going to use. You've got to think about how the users are going to carry them, charge them, where they're going to put them. Highly important is how your software is actually going to work on those devices. The users don't care about the devices, they care about how they access the record and how much of a burden it is to access the record. Once you've done that, the mobility becomes a tremendous value, but you've got to take all those steps in order to get there.